We have a group here that was very instrumental in the success through this pandemic for us, and I think for the schools that we service, and that is our curriculum integration group. So that group is made up of 15 ex-teachers, and what they did is they started immediately as soon as these lockdowns happened and schools changed their method of learning. A lot of them went fully remote right off the bat. Some did a hybrid model, but at the end of the day, these schools were flying an airplane and building it at the same time. A lot of our customers, had no experience in this remote learning environment or the hybrid environment. So our technology integration specialists, they put together an expansive library of digital learning tools, resources for these districts to utilize to try to find success in this new normal, right? Because at the end of the day, what our role is we're providing technology and solutions in education, in the K-12 education specifically, to ultimately produce a better student outcome in a classroom, right? So, we did a lot of what we termed as appy hours, which were, webinars for these teachers where we went through these tools where we had office hours, virtual office hours every day, where we were in communication with district admins, with teachers, going through answering questions they had, solving issues that they were faced with, whatever they were struggling with. And that could relate to data privacy, teacher training, engaging students in in this new digital platform. So that was, in a broad sense, a big thing that we found success in as well. And then we have part of that group, we have a solution called EdU Badges, which is a micro-credentialing program. And that was utilized hot and heavy, right? So there's, doing this Microsoft Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting for us, I don't want to say it's a daily occurrence, but I do a lot of them even prior to the pandemic, that a lot of meetings are structured that way. But a lot of these teachers had no concept of how to utilize that effectively for a student. So in this badging program, we had badges out for all of those platforms, right? And then they worked and developed new badges. We did entire pathways that were dedicated to remote instruction. That could be delivering the content. That could be engaging with the student. It could be how to improve the audio experience from your end to my end and my end to your end. That I think producing that content and assisting those teachers in that manner, I think was an immense, not only success for us, but I think for them to find success in this new normal during the pandemic.
I know you talk about how customer experience is always really important for you guys, regardless of the pandemic and all that stuff. But the pandemic does raise the stakes, especially for the school customers and the teachers and the students and the parents who want their kids to get a good education. So the stakes are really high, and for you guys to step up like that when they really need some assistance in order to be up and running and continue to do what they do. That's very significant. And I'm wondering, from a company standpoint, from, like a customer stickiness standpoint, from a building relationship standpoint, what kind of impact do you see for your company?
Well, I think the impact is huge. I think having that connection that our staff has with and how they're working hand in hand with the teachers and with the school admin from a stickiness perspective, I don't know if it could get any better in all honesty. And when they start seeing the success and when we're taking some of that burden off the teachers, they were doing so much. Some of these are still reporting in the school, right? Some of them are doing hybrid while they're doing remote. They were taxed to an unbelievable extent. And I think taking some of that pressure off of them, knowing that we had their back, knowing that we had their best interest, knowing that we're trying to assist them in that delivery mechanism and that model, I think was fantastic. And then, from a solution standpoint outside of that, there's things that we take for granted. I have my phone in my pocket on me at all times, right? So I have this computer in my pocket that gives me internet access at all times. That's not the case with a lot of these students still. There's still a lot of these students from a remote aspect that don't have internet access at home, right? They don't have all these tools. So getting devices to these students at home, our on-site team, our on-site technicians were absolutely instrumental in that delivery mechanism. And then we have a cabling team that we started putting up wireless access points in the parking lots of these school districts. So we can say, hey, listen, Johnny and Susie can get to the school parking lot, we can get them internet access, right? They can at least, get their work submitted do it at home, submit it online at the school, download material that they may need. And then some of these school districts actually open that up to the public, right? And then you take that a step further, and we started investigating and delivering, like hotspots, right, to certain districts for them to utilize in these homes. So, I think from a stickiness standpoint and, doing what's best for that customer at that point, I think the impact was huge. And I think, our goal is to retain these customers for life, right? That's always the objective. And I think when you go above and beyond, in a way, and then you find success doing that, I think that everybody realizes their best interest is, we're looking after that for them. We're assisting them in that. And I don't think it could have been a better experience for us and for the customer.
So, John, you guys won in the category of agility, and this has been an interesting year, this past year, for agility when it comes to what integration companies have had to do in terms of reacting to new needs that their customers have, and their customers trying to understand what they need, and integration companies trying to figure out what their role is in filling those needs. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about what you guys did in terms of agility and finding these new solutions for customers.
Sure. Like everyone else, March 13th was the day that we left here on a Friday afternoon, expecting to be back in a 2 or 3 week period. Everyone kind of remembers 15 days to bend the curve. I know we wish all that was true. But we left in the building, we started to look at our business, and pretty quickly we realized that we needed to look at a longer term plan and what we were doing. So the first thing we did is we gathered together a bunch of influencers in the Boston market. And that was vice presidents of facilities for large corporations, property managers, building owners, couple of academia, higher education, and we did a series of roundtables to start talking to them about what do they see in the near future. And we kind of categorized this around 3 categories: near, now, near, and far, excuse me. In the now was really, okay, if people start coming back to work in the next 2 or 3 months in April, May, June, what would they need to do to get back into the office? And then once they're back in the office, the near is, okay, what would we need to changes would we need to make to their space and to their technology to support those people that are coming back? And then the far is, we were starting to see early on that this was going to be a real inflection point in the way that people look at space and technology and how it comes together. So with that information, we formed an internal team of cross-functional team of people with our organization, people from my group, the AV technology group, our furniture group, our architectural products group. And we sat down and said, let's now address the now. The things we heard immediately was, how do we get people back into the building safely? How do we get large numbers of people back into the building? Because back at that point, in the April, May timeframe, people were still thinking, oh, we'll be back in June and we'll have large numbers back. So we went back and we said, well, once they're in the building, what technologies do they need to support them in the building? And what physical barriers do we need to put in? And at that point, we didn't have as much knowledge as we had about the spread of the COVID virus. And it was really mostly around touch and cleaning and going forward. So with that, we went forward and put this team together and said, we need to give our customers a playbook or a guide or a program that will lay out what their steps are needed. And with that, we went back and looked at a number of different researched and looked at a number of different tools that we could use. And we started to put together a total solution to help our customers.
Hey, aloha NSCA and all of our BLC guests. We want to thank you sincerely for honoring us with the Employee Engagement Stepping Up Award. We've got Hunter, our Employee Engagement Manager here. You can look him up on our website. He truly has a title at IST. We took this pandemic as hard, I think, as everyone else did. And it gave us a chance to refocus the types of communications that we were sending. And I think Christine really did an outstanding job of keeping our team apprised on a daily basis of what was happening. So Christine, why don't you talk about that effort?
Yeah, thanks. So obviously when COVID first hit, it was kind of like the initial stage of panic and not sure what to do. We immediately transitioned to working remotely. The majority of our staff that did work remotely. There was a couple people who really insisted on still coming to the office. And then all of our technicians just went remote directly to the job site. So they just wouldn't even show up to our office. They would just go directly to the customer site. Interestingly enough, we found out that productivity increased, which is awesome. And then my focus was just on communication, constant communication. I really wanted to overload people with almost too much communication, although I did not have any complaints. So everything from, it was daily, everything from where to get tested to what restaurants were open to, the new rules that, with the governor changing the proclamations every other day. It was trying to figure out like what different island could we go to and not have to go and not have to quarantine. And so it was just a variety of information that I would send out. And then it focused on getting PPE. Remember in the beginning, PPE was really hard to get. And so I ended up, I think it was in the first week of realizing that this was serious. I went out and basically purchased as many masks as I possibly could. And I gave them to everybody and gave them enough even for their family. We transitioned our Monday, we have a Monday morning all hands meeting where everybody comes to the office and we talk about everything from safety to leadership to disc styles to how to do things better in the field, be more efficient. And we had to transition that to remote. So we immediately got on the Zoom meetings and started doing it remote and realizing soon, I think it was after the first or second meeting, how really there was a lack of engagement. And so we really tried very hard. I think it was Andrew's idea to really start to just ask questions instead of being in a one-way conversation. And so it was things like, what are you afraid of? What are you concerned about? What's COVID, look like for you and your household? And wow, we had a lot of real emotion behind that. Some people were freaked out because they were scared that they were going to get it. Some people didn't want to work. Some people had kids that they were trying to figure out how they were going to do school from home. We had one guy who couldn't seem to get rice. Remember that? I don't know if it's just Hawaii. You couldn't get rice and toilet paper, the two most important things in Hawaii. And so we went out and we went to Costco and got him a whole big bag of rice. But the guy was crying. I mean, it's just the sheer emotion and the panic that kind of people had. But I think giving them a forum to have a discussion about it kind of eased or calmed their fears, at least in the initial stages. And then we kind of moved on, right? We kind of moved on to the second phase, right? And this was once we knew we were in it for the long haul. And the tough part there was, I moved from moving to daily communication to weekly, so it wasn't as constant because it didn't need to be. But remember how we were just really struggling with how to maintain continuity with our people and engagement. A lot of times we didn't know what people are doing because no one was showing up to the office anymore. Yeah. So we really
gamified it.
We did.
Gamified communications. Yeah.
We did. So we had a lot of sessions, a lot of team building events where, it was just smaller groups. And so we had like one team building event. We had like 5 people and we gave them $100 and said, hey, go grab some lunch and do a team building exercise and then film a video of you. And we put all those videos and pictures together and we put it on our LinkedIn page as, hashtag Save Hawaii's Businesses. Because one of the things was they had to support a local business. If anybody was in the office on Fridays during this time, we bought lunch for everybody in the office, but it had to be a local business. So again, I think just really important to support our community during that time in any way that we could. And if that meant supporting or patronizing local businesses, we would. I mean, that was important.
Yeah, we definitely incentivized that, and we incentivized, the teams to participate in that, and we would help support that, financially whenever and wherever we could. There was a lot of engagement around the workplace and working properly. There were teams on the island that we would be on site with that weren't wearing PPE or wearing it properly or paying attention to the hand washing rules. Our guys end up having to talk to the general contractor and say, hey, what's with this? I thought your on-site rules were X. Why aren't these guys paying attention? And people in Hawaii don't like to be like that, but it's what it took. So I think our team were leaders amongst the working community here on the job sites we were on. And we received commendations from some of the project managers for the diligence that our team showed in keeping their hands washed, keeping their tools clean, keeping their work area clean, keeping their PPE on. So
Yeah.
So it was well done. It was a big team effort all the way around.
Yeah, we did everything we could to help facilitate work in whatever capacity that was, whether that was supporting parents that had to deal with children in the whole school at home situation, to we gave a bunch of people a stipend to be able to purchase equipment to work from home, whether that's a desk or an extra keyboard or a bigger monitor. And again, I just think at the end of the day, we all kind of sell the same products, and the key difference is just our employees and us understanding how valuable our employees are, and probably the single most important asset that we have. Being able to give back in a time of pandemic was extremely important. And I won't lie, we were kind of winging it. we pretty much just tried anything to see what worked. I mean, we had virtual happy hours, and we had team building sessions, and we had, I mean, it was crazy. People, we'd be in Zoom meetings and we'd see cats walk across the desk, and, children screaming, and it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff going on.
But the team, they liked it. They responded well. They still like it. I think everybody loves the Monday morning meeting to this day.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be a staple component there of checking in, with everyone, instead of it just being a sort of an outward bound training thing. We always give everyone, hey, does anyone need anything? But when you ask people to speak and you make sure to go around to each person and get something from them on a topic, that seems to just work wonders for engagement amongst everybody. I think everybody enjoyed that.
And I think, look, at the end of the day, it's about resiliency. I mean, this has been going on for almost a year, and just being very grateful and very thankful that we're resilient, our team's resilient, and our company's resilient,
and our industry's resilient. So we'll just keep churning forth. Everybody keep doing what you do. We'll all get through this together.
Appreciate the award. Thank you.
Yeah, aloha.
We were fortunate on the timing because our network operations center was in the works for a while. And February of 2020 is when we had the final architectural plans to start construction. And we actually were wondering if we should start the construction right at the beginning of the pandemic, just because we thought we'd have so many other distractions to deal with. But we decided to move forward, and it was a great decision to move forward with the formal construction of the physical space.
With the physical space being Network Operations Center.
Our NOC, Network Operations Center, was it's 1,200 square feet. It's a dedicated space within our company that has limited access, a dedicated HVAC, its own dedicated generator, its own conference room, its own manager's office. So it's a completely separate space within Cygnet's corporate headquarters.
It's just, it's really interesting because the timing couldn't have been better, right? I know this is something that you guys had been working on prior to the pandemic, but you also worked on it at the beginning of the pandemic and ultimately launched in June in the midst of the pandemic. And that must have played really well for you, because now you've got an easier way to engage with customers and to serve customers at a time when it's hard to do so.
Certainly, it was a big help. Getting access, a more formal way and professional way of getting access into onto our clients' network. And we actually we have had several clients, high-profile clients, hospitals certainly, court systems, prisons, Department of Corrections, that were hesitant about giving us access onto their network in the past. But the pandemic it kind of opened their eyes, first of all, because they were having issues and we couldn't be in their facility. And we had the Remote Smart, which is what we branded as our offering from our NOC. It legitimized what we were doing, okay? And it really opened the eyes of our clients so that they could see the significance of what we were providing, and they would open up their networks for us.
So the other thing, Brad, is, a lot of people will say, well, integration companies offer remote service. What do you guys do that sort of sets you apart from the pack?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, Tom, and Cigna for years has been providing remote services to our clients. But we are really doing a disservice to our clients because it wasn't done in an organized and standard methodology. What we were doing was we had really talented technicians in the field, and when we had an issue, we call the technician, ask them to call into our client and solve a problem. But the challenge with that is we weren't performing proper password protection policies. We weren't using the proper software so that we could retrace our steps if we were in somebody's network and find out what we had done. We weren't logging and documenting things properly. We were more of an ad hoc, very super reactive organization. We had the technology to call in, to dial in, and to service our clients remotely. But we, as most integrators do, but it's the process and setting up the system. So from a cybersecurity standpoint, we're properly protecting our clients.
Gotcha. And then from a career standpoint, this is a new level of opportunity for Signet employees.
Yeah, Signet employees, and it opens up a whole new pool of staffing that we have access to. So our business is regulated. We need licensed people typically in the field. However, when you're working out of a NOC, you're looking for more IT network skilled and trained people. And it's giving Signet a way to scale without having the restrictions of licensing tacked onto us. Okay, so it's opening up because it's a desirable career for an IT person, an IT trained person, to work in a formal, clean, pristine network operating center. Okay, most IT network savvy people don't want to get into a truck and climb ladders. They want to work in a nice, pristine, professional environment. So it's opening up that whole world of the networking and IT industry to us.
And then the other side of it is the impact. This category that you guys won in is called achievement. And, the other benefit of having done this at this time is, you guys, I think you sold it in a couple of different ways, sort of, you can go into it, but there's sort of two tiers where you sell it, but it infused your company with revenue or revenue opportunities that it didn't have before at a time when a lot of other companies were really searching for revenue opportunities.
Yes, it's interesting. I've talked to a few integrators since we've rolled out Remote Smart, and most integrators, from my experience, have been offering some sort of remote service to their clients, as Signet has been for many years. And the challenge that Signet was running into is that we were offering services to service our clients remotely, and we were not charging for it. We had no way of capturing what we were doing. And that's the same story I'm getting from a lot of clients where, a lot of integrators, where a client will call in with an issue. It's urgent. They'll call up one of their top technicians from the road. He may be at a site, or he may be in a car, he may be at home, and he'll log in and he'll solve the problem for the client. And meanwhile, there was no real way of tracking and charging the client for that service. We were doing that for many years. So that's more of like a reactive approach. And certainly our NOC is offering reactive services. So we came up with two offerings to our clients, a reactive and a proactive. And we actually put a SKU on these services so that now we have a formal way of tracking our time, against a reactive or a proactive service agreement through the NOC, and we're charging our clients some way for this service. Many integrators, from my experience, are offering the service. It may not be as organized as a formal network operations center, but it's they're offering it informally, and they're not capturing that revenue. And having a formal SKU allows us to add remote smart services to every existing service agreement that we have in place. It might be reactive or it might be proactive, but we are adding revenue dollars onto every agreement that we have automatically. And the client, it's just an automatic upcharge, because if they want the ability for us to remote in a reactive situation, they have to pay for it. And that's and now with a formal staff in place, we can offer it.
Our members really appreciate, Christina's support during these years, because, she makes a big difference in our community. She brings hope in these very difficult times. And at the same time, along with this hope, she also provides this material help that really, really makes a difference.
So Western Service Workers Association is a membership organization of low-income workers and their families with the goal to turn around poverty conditions experienced by all kinds of low-paid service workers. Our membership also includes elderly, disabled, retired workers.
With WSWA, they have members who they have kids, and a lot of time parents are unable to buy back to school supplies.
When you are having to make dire decisions between paying utilities and even being able to provide food for your family, and then you have to get school supplies, and this year you also are dealing with having to set up remote learning.
As much as I could take on, I was glad to take on, because I knew that I had help at home. My 10-year-old daughter at the time was being homeschooled, so that was perfect, and I knew that Kayla would be able to help.
Basically, they were able to provide school supplies and backpacks that are very helpful. It's a way of, saving money to use it for another necessities.
And then we also did the toy drive as well during the Christmas season.
We have been participating in the Western Service Workers annual children's holiday party and toy distribution for several years now. This year it looked a lot different, but we saw that the need was never greater.
And they donated toys for over 50 children. What was really neat is they actually helped us by packaging all the toys in pre-labeled boxes so they could be easily distributed and dropped off at families' homes.
They do it because they understand that providing these supplies, members can save some money that they can use later.
A month or so after the pandemic hit, Christina, reached out to us and said she wanted to offer the opportunity for our small business supporters that we really depend on to provide this information about the payment protection program.
This was a special project to benefit other small businesses during this pandemic. TWE did a tremendous job.
I love navigating through difficulties when it revolves regulations. So I sat through countless webinars and also did my own research and reading the SBA guidelines and really figure out and come up with our own spreadsheets on how different level of corporation and businesses can apply.
And we were really thrilled to be able to offer Christina and TWE's assistance to help these small businesses to stay afloat. Because as an independent organization from any government funding, it's really crucial the support that small businesses in the community can give to us.
If you look at it, we're all tied together. And if small businesses shut down permanently, it has a huge impact on our economy and our community and on organizations who are representing the lowest income working families. upwards of 50% of the entire workforce is employed by small businesses, many of whom are members of Western Service Workers Association. So when these small businesses shut their doors, it has a huge ripple effect within the rest of the community.
I think it's very important because, as you know, we are limited to travel. We're limited to being able to meet with each other in person.
Well, when you're a community organization and you're needing to meet with your members or supporters or, host sessions like a general medical session or what have you, and it all has to be done remotely, and you're a local community organization that's very limited in resources, you don't have the ability to get this type of conferencing equipment.
And this was perfect. It was a need. We met with Christina and the team and figured out how many of these units do we have available that we could provide.
Right now, many of the members of Western Service Workers Association are out of work, have been disproportionately laid off their jobs. Upwards of 60% of all the members are laid off or are just working part-time now. And the biggest need that they have is food. There's so much food insecurity that people literally don't have food. And so the ability to be able to communicate and be able to do these types of calls and reach out to supporters and reach out to others, church groups and so forth, remotely is very important. And that's why we felt this was a very needed donation. And after all, it's our core business.